Hello, everyone. Happy new month. Now, today happens to be a very interesting day. It's the 1st of April, but this is not a prank. We are here live at Now Tell Us, and we have come to bring you some great things. As always, at Now Tell Us, we have guests come and tell us stories, they come and inspire us, and we always have a great time because we have great guests who come and join us. Today, we have a great guest. His name is Alain Dumonceaux, and I hope I got that right. He's going to tell me whether I got that very right when he comes. And he's going to be talking to us about breaking free from the imposter syndrome. And I don't know whether it is something that you've been going through. Many of us do go through. And he's going to share with us exactly on that. Now, I don't want to take one more minute because I know we've got a lot to cover with Elaine. All I would want to ask you is please share this episode with all your friends. If you have questions on this topic, please ask them because Elaine has some answers that we are going to be getting from him. Now, why don't you join me as we go together to meet our special guest today? Here we go. Hello, Elaine.
Hey, Anthony, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing wonderful. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, we are also anxious to hear what it is that we are going to be hearing from you today.
Well,
Now,
I'm sure we're going to have lots of great questions and we're going to go, try and hopefully bring lots of value to your audience today and talk a little bit about the imposter syndrome and anything else that the audience may want to find out about. And I'm totally an open book. It's all yours for you and your audience today.
yeah, and yes, we are just anxious, ready, interested to know because this is something that I hear from many people who are going through some challenges of achieving their greatness because they are thinking that they are not able to. And therefore, once we have you here, who someone who has studied this topic, someone who maybe has a personal experience or personal story to tell us, then we are very lucky or blessed to be having you here today.
Well, thank you so much for that,
Now,
for sure.
at Now Tell Us, we are always curious to know which part of the world we are reaching. So, where could it be that you are at today?
Absolutely. Today I'm here from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So Winnipeg is in the center of Canada. We're right above North Dakota. So it's just nice spring weather today. Looking forward to finally seeing some green grass here.
Oh, I love spring. I love spring. Yeah. So once I start seeing the flowers that are blooming, I start seeing some green, and I know great things are going to happen. And
Yeah,
we are
every
going to,
year.
yeah,
Every year is that opportunity to renew ourselves, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. And what a time to be sharing on this topic because this could help someone bloom, someone come bring out their flowers and shine and grow green and become productive in their own life.
Absolutely.
Now, because this is a topic that I picked from your profile, can you maybe tell us, is it something that you've been going through? And first and foremost, let's start by defining what is imposter syndrome for someone who may not have a clue about it.
Absolutely. Well, the syndrome is really that time, that mindset you have where you just don't think that you're worthy or good enough to be in a position, whether that's either in, think about it, it can happen in lots of different areas, but a lot of times it shows up in our professional lives that we're maybe running an organization, or we're challenging ourselves to go to the next level on our career path. And yet for some reason inside in our mind, we have this chatter, this story that tells us that, it questions us, why do you really think you should be doing this job? And I can tell you that it just doesn't show up there. I can remember first becoming a father and having those same ideas. How am I going to be able to raise children? What do I know about being a parent? And this comes up in so many different ways in our lives. And when we allow that voice inside of our head to control the narrative about who we are, then we can become stagnated in our lives. And it really can be a detriment to our personal growth. And so I continually find myself always having that imposter syndrome coming up today, not to the degree that it did many, many years ago, especially as we start doing things like podcasting. Right now I'm working on writing a book this year. And so lots of these old feelings start to come up and challenge myself. But I recognize that there are successes in my life that prove that there isn't an imposter there, that there is truth behind, that we have greatness within us. And when we can recognize that and look towards that side of our lives, then we can push through this imposter idea.
Oh yeah, and that's important. What is it that you do currently?
Yeah, so today I run a men's personal development organization called the Awakened Man, and with that work, we're really helping men push through different stages of their lives. It could be a marriage that's no longer working for them, their career or their business success is really stagnated, or they've just lost the zest for life. They're in their 20s or 30s or 40s. They're thinking about where their life should have been, and they look in the mirror one day and they realize that they haven't accomplished anything that they had set out to do. And so my work is really to help men really transition from that one phase of life into that next one. And I'm also a professional chef. I did that for a number of years and have been managing restaurants and in hospitality environments as well. And so I have a foot in these two different seemingly opposing ideas or businesses, but really a lot of the same things happen in business as they do in our personal lives. And so I like the idea of this marriage, of this work that I have. It keeps me fulfilled, keeps me busy, really challenges me to become the best person that I can be.
Wow, that's beautiful. And it's good that we have you here talking about men, because I don't know about where it is that you are right now and things that have been happening around you. But where I come from, all they've been talking about is just being there for the girl child, building, giving them self-esteem, helping them to and someone has always been saying, hey, what's happening to the boy child, to the man who's supposed to identify himself and grow himself and achieve his greatest potential? Who's there for them? Now we are here talking about men, and just encouraging them and building them up, and we appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. We need to have more men really stepping up and doing this kind of work, as I find that the women in our lives have been much better at doing this work,
Hmm.
this self-reflection, and men, we tend to have this idea of really being this lone wolf, and we'll only engage when it's at the 11th hour or our most crucial point in life. And hopefully through our conversation today, we can encourage men to get ahead of that just before that happens, so that they can start to make some better changes in their life.
Yeah. Wow. You talk about uh, and because you talked about being a chef, and there is Culinary Olympics. What's that?
Yeah, so actually, there's the World Culinary Olympics that happens in the calendar year of the Summer Olympics, and early in the mid '80s, when I graduated culinary school and I started, applying my craft, I was fortunate enough to work for my who ultimately became my mentor, who was starting to compete in 1984. He was a junior supporting the national team. Canada's national team at the Culinary Olympics. And over the next 12 years, I had an opportunity to spend time with him, with ultimately becoming a part of the regional team here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, to go and compete in the World Culinary Olympics in 1992. And you have to remember, in the mid 80s and early 90s, there was no food TV, there's no Bobby Flay, Iron Chef, none of that. That really wasn't happening. And so this was something that was very, very specialized, and not a lot of people knew about it. And so it really was an opportunity for you to practice and hone your skills. I competed in what they called the cold competition, meaning there was opportunities to create platters and meals for 5 course and 8 course, that judges would come up and rate the product based on composition, how that it looked in terms of flavor profile. We provided recipes and everything, and very similar to how other Olympics are judged. You were rated in a score. So it wasn't that there was one silver, one gold, one silver, one bronze. If you scored within a certain range, then you received that medal. I was very blessed, through help with my colleagues as well as my own work, to receive two, a team silver medal as well as an individual silver medal. And so what I learned from that is that really that's my really big time into dealing with the imposter syndrome, but also really gave me opportunity to really understand who I was and how to become the best chef that I could be, being surrounded by so many amazing, talented people.
How was it, and how were you affected by imagining of yourself, or maybe looking at the perspective that you were at, the imposter syndrome? How was it, and how did you deal with it at that point?
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, it was really about just challenging myself to show up every day. With the imposter syndrome, it's so easy for us to want to give up. But when you're part of a team and you're being counted on to do things, and we had to do everything from fundraising meals and dinners and to help raise money so that we could go. And so you're always applying your craft. And I found that I always felt that my work, I had to work so much harder to achieve the results than what I witnessed from my mentor, who just had this natural gifted talent, that things would just happen and unfold for him. But I had to really grind that out. And so what I recognize is that as long as the effort was there, that's all that my teammates wanted to see. Is Alan showing up with the effort? And I think when we can recognize that our effort, applying our craft and whatever it is they're doing, we can overcome this idea, this imposter syndrome. Because I had to compete to get onto the team, and so that got me there. And so that was also thinking of, well, why am I discounting questioning why I'm here? I went through the process. I was able to be on the team. I had support from teammates to help, who could do things a little bit better than I could, to help round out my showpieces and round out pieces. And it was a total team effort. And when you think about that, and even in team sports, everybody has a role to play. Not all of us are going to be the superstar. Some of us will play different roles. And when I recognize that I don't need to measure myself against the top talent on the team, and instead measure myself against how I performed yesterday and the day before, and the effort, is my work ethic there? Am I applying myself? And as long as I stayed within that framework, then I was able to overcome and really subdue that imposter syndrome, that voice that kept challenging me and questioning, why am I here?
And I can imagine, as you described, that each and every one of us in a team have a different part to play. Now, taking the example of someone's body, a human body, which has many parts. There is the hand that does a different job from what the mouth does. There's the leg that takes us where we want to go. So if I can imagine myself in a team as being the hand, or maybe the leg, or maybe the mouth that is going to speak some words that are going to change the outcome of my surroundings, then I'm going to see my value, and not just think of myself as someone who is not useful, and maybe start imagining myself low of the potential that I possess. So I get that. That's a picture I get as you share that, being a team and working in a team.
Yeah, and I like the analogy that you're using about our bodies, right? Think about missing any one of the fingers or your thumb on your hand. Just
Hmm.
how much more challenging is it to write, to type, to tie your shoes, to do
Hmm.
anything in life? And so we take things for granted. We take for granted that when we are participating, especially in a team environment, that how I show up really will dictate how well that day goes. And so, as long as I am within my framework of what I can do, challenging myself to grow and expand, why should I focus on anything that's external? And so I make use of all parts of my body. I'll make use of everything that I bring to the table, and not pretend that I can do something that's outside of my skill set. If it's something that I desire to learn, that's a different story. Then I can go ahead and learn, and then be willing to have many failures along the way as I get better and better at my craft. And I think that's why, for me, as a young man, I really fell in love with cooking and that opportunity, because every time you create a plate, I always say that we're only as good as our last meal served, because the ingredients change, the quality has changed, but we change, but what shouldn't change is our mindset and our ability to really lean into that work. And so I think when we really take advantage of our gifts, some of them being latent, maybe we haven't recognized what they are, and that's some of the work that we do with the Awakened Man, is helping men really understand the gifts that they bring, to help break free from that imposter syndrome, or that time when they think that they question their value and what they're bringing to the world. And I think when we do that, then we have an opportunity to really grow and expand as men.
Hmm. Earlier on, you mentioned about someone who's become a parent for the very first time, and in this case, a father, and you have some responsibility over your children, and maybe boys. And I'm imagining that this could be a first time father who's not done it before. And the only person that is next to you is your wife or the mother of the children. So you're a team, yes, you're different parts of the team. And since you don't have any experience of being a father before, how do we go about this? I mean, an environment where I don't see someone uh, as an example, maybe, and we have many people who have not grown in a mixed family, or rather, they don't have a father figure. So
Mm,
they have got to start from the ground zero.
yeah.
How do we go about this in identifying ourselves as capable men, of people with potential, and living to our, yeah, to our calling?
Yeah, that's a great question, Anthony. And you bring up a great point there as well, right? Whether you're a new father, or this is your second or third child or whatever that you're having, and regardless of what environment you were raised, many of us, where have come from, where it's the nuclear family, and many of us also come from what I'll call a broken family, where there is no father figure in there. But regardless of our background and where and how we've come to be fathers, what has always would will always be around in our lives will be men of influence that we can look to for guidance and leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if whether you're like, my father was an extremely quiet man, and I'm the oldest of five, and so I could lean on those experiences of raising and helping raise, the not the second not the second oldest, because we're only 11 months or 12 months apart, but 5 and 7 and 12 years apart. I could lean on those experiences, and then as I got older and participated in sports, I could look at the coaches, the mentors that I had through there, and how did they lead? What were the things that I liked and I didn't like? That continued to be those similar questions, and as I grew in my professional life. And so you can take all of these things and take the good things. What are the things that really helped you learn and grow, and how did that happen? How did that shape who you are as a man? And then you can take that and start to apply them as being fathers, and how you want to raise your son and your sons and or daughters. And so I think when we recognize that who it is that we aspire to be as men, and what do we see as being that mentor. If my son or daughter was to turn back and say, you know, my dad was the greatest father that I could have ever asked for, what would that mean for me? What would I have to do? How would
Mhm.
I have to show up? And so we can do that work and look at from mentors and from other experiences, watching how experiences with other parents and other from our friends and from other couples and how they're interacting from our larger family, grandparents. So there's not that there's a lack of information in there. It's about having us distill it. And for me, it always comes back to how it is that I want to be remembered as a father, and how is it that I can help guide and coach my children. I have two boys, so my sons, in being the most fulfilling men that they can be.
Talking of mentors, because you mentioned mentors, I perceive that your father was your mentor in parenting, though he was a quiet man. And then you had a mentor in the Culinary Olympics, or rather, being a chef. You had a chef. Now you're into business where you are helping men with living life positively, and then just overcoming these challenges that confront them. Who's your mentor in this area?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have actually one of the gentlemen that participates in my men's work is a great mentor of mine. He really is that spiritual mentor for me. It helps ground me into my practice, and so he's definitely one that I lean into. I have the other mentors I have are a business. I have a business mentor who helps me on the business side of this operation. As you're doing stuff, I'm sure you're finding, Anthony, anything doing online, it's a little bit of a different game, and so you need to find those people that you can lean in with. And so I have a business mentor that helps me, get better at honing my craft in terms of marketing and messaging. And then I have mentors for a mentor for my podcast. It was a guest on my show in the first year, and we just hit it off really well, and have been. I would say we are shared mentors, and it's said we need to have three mentors. There need to be three mentors in our lives. We need to have that mentor of somebody who's a little bit further down the road than us in different aspects. So I always look for that. We need to be mentors to our fellow peers, and so we're mentoring each other. And then we also need to find the mentee, somebody that we can mentor to. And when we have that type of a mentorship relationship, and you can have those three bases covered, we tend to grow it exponentially, because we get an opportunity to see life from many different perspectives. You get an opportunity to be coached, to coach and to work arm in arm, and then to help lead others into helping them aspire and become better. So I think there's lots of different opportunities for us to find mentors in our lives.
Yeah, and I believe as we are discussing mentors, it helps us, uh, other than just imagining myself and seeing the challenges that are in front of me, and me questioning myself of my capability, and just thinking of myself as an imposter. A
Mhm.
mentor is someone who's necessary. Do you always share, maybe at some point that you find yourself questioning yourself, do you always share that feeling with your mentor, and tell him, I think I'm not cut for this. I think I'm not the person. Did you ever share with them, or you just listening to their direction and following their directions?
Yeah, that's a great question, Anthony. I would say that my conversations with my mentors is much more like a conversation, and so it's one of those few times where I'm speaking mostly, and they're listening.
Mm,
And I think when we find good mentors, that's the relationship you want to find. You want to find somebody who knows how to ask great questions, but also understands that there's power in silence and allowing us to work through our challenge. And so there have been, for sure, opportunities where I've questioned whether I want to continue with this path. The business is growing slowly. I'm financially, does it make sense to do this any longer? And so we talk about, so then he'll ask me about, so what have been my daily practices? How have I, what have I been doing to move the business forward? And then as I'm explaining and talking about where I'm at, it becomes evident, where I potentially am sabotaging myself, that the imposter voice has started to creep back in and talk me out of doing things, talk me out of, well, we can always do that another day. And so that procrastination mode sets in. And so I think it's key when we're having the conversation with mentors, that they're there to guide. And that's why I refer to myself as a purposeful action mentor, because it's about guiding them and having them figure it out. If you have a mentor, the difference to me between a mentor and a coach is, a coach is somebody who's going to tell you what to do.
Mhm.
He's coaching this team. He's going to tell you, we're going to run this play. And then everybody goes out and they runs the play. But a mentor is going to provide you options. What do you think? Well, what would you guess that would happen if you took this action? It's more of being like that, like a lighthouse, to guide you, to have the opportunity to make decisions. And if it's going to be a very detrimental decision, then possibly they'll stand in and give you warning, not telling you not to do it, but give you some fair warning of things you should consider for us to consider. And I think those are the key things about being mentors, and really think about that from raising children. There is that point in time where we will be the one that's the coach, and we're telling them what to do and keeping them safe and doing that. But as they get older, as they get into that preteen years, they start to get to, become a teenager, our relationship changes with them. And so how do we evolve? We need to evolve to allow them to make some decisions. Hopefully we've coached them along the way to help them do that.
Mhm.
But as they get a little older, then they can make other decisions and see the consequences of those, good and maybe not so good for them. But it's an opportunity for them to learn. And I think that's really key when we're either being a mentor or we're working with a mentor.
Of all the instances that you found yourself, where you just imagine yourself that you are an imposter, which has been your worst? If you can share with us.
Yeah, I'm going to say for sure, preparing and competing in the Culinary Olympics. There was such a gap, and even to this day, as I look back, but today, when I look back on it and I say that there was a skill gap and there was a talent gap in the past, that would have, for me to say that would have been, you might as well have, stabbed me in the heart. Today, I look back and I go, yes, some of that was true. But what I can also say is that I know that I did everything I possibly could to put out the best product, to support the team as the best way that I could. And so today, that the language and the emotion attached to it, is the language may be similar, but the emotion and the feeling that is attached to it is much different. It has evolved and it has grown. And so today, when the imposter syndrome comes up, when I decided to start doing men's work, well, how am I going to do this? Is there an opportunity to do this? There was nothing in my part of Canada that has anything like this. And so I'm breaking new ground, but I could see that in the US, this was very popular. Out on the West Coast, this was popular. So I knew that there was a foundation. And so then, instead of comparing myself, as I'm doing market analysis, just to get a framework of how I see my piece of the world will work, is to not compare myself and say, well, why am I not more like Ryan Mickler or Garrett White, or all these guys that are doing men's work. They're 10 years ahead of me. They've had 10 plus years in the game. They've honed their skills. And as I look back at their work and how they started, they needed to start from somewhere. They were the pioneers, the groundbreakers. And so today, that imposter syndrome, while it's not as powerful as it was back in the 80s when I was, honing my skill as a chef, a young chef, today it comes in, and when it does creep in, I'm able to handle it much better because I've been able to learn how to really manage my emotions and the story around that. And so I would have to say for sure it's the Culinary Olympics that was the biggest challenge.
And what points could you leave us with? Someone who's maybe at that point that they are doubting themselves, or maybe putting themselves at a point where they are considering themselves imposters. What would you advise them in point form? Maybe one, two, three, so that we can walk away with something to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I would say is that if you're thinking that you're having these feelings that an imposter in whatever it is that you're doing, the first thing I'd like you to ask you to consider is the story that you're telling yourself, and what is the origin of that story? Because the origin of that story is some event or a couple events that have solidified a belief within yourself of what you think that you're capable of. And the truth of the matter is that there's an opportunity for you to learn something about what happened there. And as time goes by and the more that we replay that belief, it becomes distorted. It becomes bigger than what the actual event is. And so I ask you that if you're having having the imposter syndrome as something that you're battling right now, is think about the story that you're telling yourself. Once you understand and recognize the story that you're telling yourself, I want you now to rewrite that story in a more positive framework. What were the lessons, the positive lessons that you learned? Because sometimes when I say lessons right away, they want to bring up all the bad things that happened. They aren't, it isn't bad. It's what we're doing with it that is determining that we're making that decision that it's bad. So instead, rewrite that story. What are the positive things that you've learned from it? Because you've grown immensely from that. And
Mm-hmm.
then after you've recognized the story you're telling, you've rewritten that story. Now you can take an opportunity and write down what is it you would like to the ideal outcome to be for whatever it is that you're challenging yourself and being an imposter. How is it that perfect day looks like, or that perfect event looks like for you?
Mm-hmm.
Now you have a roadmap from the past and you've brought it to the future, to the skills that you have today. You've rewritten your limiting belief around that. You've been able to reframe that entire story. And now you can put it into a place where it rightfully belongs, which is an opportunity, which was a learning opportunity. It was a chapter in your life, and you can start to write a brand new chapter. And so those would be the steps that I would ask people to do. It's a great
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for you to really start to do some deep work that many of us are nervous to do. And if you're afraid about doing that, there's opportunity for you to join one of our groups, come in and have a clarity consultation with myself to help you maybe work through that, rewriting that story so that you can get an opportunity to really take an opportunity to tame that imposter.
Mm. And thank you for the invite. So, how can we find out where you are? Yes, please share with us how to connect with you.
Absolutely. Go to my website, theawakenedman.net. And on that website, you're going to see there'll be a pop up there. Right now, there's a free workbook for you to download. It's called Setting the Compass. It's an opportunity for you to reflect on the last 12 months about how that has unfolded for you, to write your headline for how you would have described this last 12 months. And then in the workbook, I'm also going to ask you to reflect on and imagine what the next 12 months will look like, and then to write your headline for the next 12 months, because it'll be in those lessons from the last 12 and what you implement in the next 12 that you do in this moment will determine the trajectory of your life. And so take that to free guide. It's an opportunity to give you a sense for the flavor of the work that we do here at the Awakened Man.
Wow. So, to every man who's out there, I don't know whether he's welcoming any woman who he wants to. But anyway, for every man who's out there, please be reminded to just hop on to the awakenedman.net and connect with Alain. He's a good mentor, we can tell. So go and be mentored. Go and just take advantage of what he's wanting to share with us as we keep on growing and as we keep on knowing how to handle the imposter syndrome. Wow, it's been such an honor having you, Alain. at this time. We appreciate you and everything that you've shared with us.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for having me on the show. I really appreciated our conversation and outstanding questions, and all the best to you in your future.
Yeah, thank you. And even though you shared with us so much, it's always our custom to ask you to leave us with a few words, the fewest words that you can leave us with, which we shall always remember. Which are they?
Always remember that the story that we tell ourselves is only a chapter in our life, and that every day we have an opportunity to rewrite the chapters of our lives. And so do that and write a powerful one.
Wow, thank you. It's only a chapter of your life, it's not the whole story. Wow, once again, thank you. And to each and everyone who's been watching us, we appreciate you. Or even those who get to watch us or even listen to us after we are through with this episode, we thank you for taking your time. And remember to share this with all your friends. Once again, remember to subscribe to our channels, whatever it is that you're tuned in. And yeah, keep on living to your potential. So, this has been Now Tell Us. And I have been your host, Anthony Mwerore. And together with our wonderful guest, Alain Dumonceaux, I had asked for you to tell us whether I got it or not. Dumonceaux, did I get it?
That was perfect, Anthony.
Okay. Alain Dumonceaux. Yes, we are saying keep on growing, keep on improving, keep on being the best version of yourselves. Thank you once again, Alain, and bye for now. Bye.